All right, hi guys. So today I wanted to talk a little bit more about building focus and working around distractions, because last week we talked about building focus and things like that, and the prereq for actually building focus. So if you haven't seen that live, you'll want to check that out. I'll link to that in the show notes for this as well. And this week I want to talk to you about the 4 factors that really they're really important when you're working around distractions and you're trying to work through distractions and get your dog to listen to you when there are distractions around, right? So last week we talked about how to get focus. If you want more of that inside our Facebook group, starting today, right after this live, we are starting a 5-day focus building challenge. And so we will give you one assignment each day for the next 5 days to build focus in your dogs. And that focus is going to go through the weekend, so there'll be a couple of catch-up days. If you're watching this live on Tuesday or Wednesday this week, there's plenty of time for you to join us if you want to. So inside our Facebook group is where that's happening, and I will link to that in the show notes as well if you're not already a member. But like I said, today I want to kind of build off of last week where we talked about building focus, and this week talk about the 4 factors that really are the things to keep in mind when you're working around distractions. So today I have, Striker sleeping in the background, but there's not going to be a training demonstration today because this is a little more like theoretical and train the trainer type stuff. These are the things that you have to understand in order to make your dog successful around distractions. And we all know that in the service dog world, your dog is going to be around distractions all the time. And so this is a really important topic, right? Okay, so like I said, there are 4 factors. I'm going to go over them, and then we're going to kind of talk about how they fit together. And I do have notes today, so don't forget anything really important. So when I look down, that's what I'm referencing. Okay, so our first factor to think about is your distance from the distraction. So the farther away you are from the distraction, the easier it's going to be for your dog, right? So let's say your dog gets really distracted by children, like just children in general, right? They want to go say hi. They think children are really exciting. We have a couple dogs in our program we're working through that right now with. So let's just use children as kind of our running example through this list. So if children are the distraction, the closer I am to a child, the harder it will be for my dog to focus, right? So if I can get 30 feet away, that's going to be easier than being 5 feet away. But if I can get 100 feet away, that's going to be even easier. So when you're introducing your dog to distractions, the farther away you can start, the better, because then your dog can be successful and you can slowly move forward. So starting just 3 feet from a playground with 50 children on it is probably too hard for our dogs. We want to start far away, slowly work our way closer. We also want to keep in mind, so number 2 is the difficulty or the intensity level of the distraction. So how difficult is this particular distraction for my dog? So children, for example, with Kenzie, that's like if we're going to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, children is probably like a level 8. So I want to keep that in mind, right? That's a level 8 distraction for her. That's really hard. That's much harder than say like a level 2 distraction, right? So I want to keep that in my mind, is how difficult is this distraction? And then also the intensity level of the distraction. So one child who's sitting still versus 20 children on a playground who are all running around screaming, right? So you can see how the one child sitting on a park bench is going to be a lot easier than the 20 children running around on the playground playing. So when we're working through a distraction like children, we want to work with one child at first, who's preferably sitting still, and then slowly work our way into lots of children who are running around. So we want to, start that slowly and then make it slowly more difficult. And in that difficulty, you want to gauge what type of reinforcement are you using. So if I know that children are a level 8 distraction for Kenzie, is one single piece of dog food really going to keep her focus? Probably not, right? I probably need something a little more exciting like hot dogs or chicken or steak or something like that. So the harder the distraction, the higher your reinforcement needs to be, right? So in the house with my dogs where there are no distractions, they all train for dog food. So do all of the service dogs in our program. If we're just hanging out, doing a normal training session on the property, they just get dog food. If we're going to the mall, and it's a weekend and there's going to be a lot of children and a lot of commotion, then we pull out things like hot dogs and chicken and cheese, things that are really good. So we've got distance, right? We've got the difficulty level of the distraction. So then the third thing to think about is your rate of reinforcement, which is how many treats per minute your dog is getting. So how fast are you delivering treats, right? So if there's no distractions around, I'm going to deliver treats to my dog a lot more slowly than I am if I'm going to be working around children, if we're going with our child example. So I will link to this again in the show notes, but a couple weeks ago when we talked about socialization, I showed a video of Drake learning to focus around a baby, right? So Drake's only like 10 or 12 weeks old, so this was really hard. It was very close. He really wanted to say hello, and if you watch that video, you'll note that my rate of reinforcement was really high. I mean, it was like this: treat, 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 treat. That I was not waiting for him to make a mistake. I was reinforcing him for keeping his attention on me so quickly that it was hard for him to even look at the baby, right? So your rate of reinforcement is really important when you're working around distractions. Number 4 is your criteria. So your criteria being what you expect from your dog. So if Kenzie can do a 5-minute sit-stay at home with no children running around and get one treat at the end for it, when we go to the park and there are 20 children running around, she can probably only do a 10-second sit-stay. And that has to be okay with you. You have to drop your criteria as the distractions rise, right? So we have our 4 things, right? So we've got distance from the distraction, the difficulty or the intensity of the distraction, your rate of reinforcement, so how many treats per minute you're giving your dog, and your criteria, so how much are you expecting from your dog. So in those 4 things, we want to increase only one thing at a time. So let's continue with my child example and a sit-stay example. So if at home, Kenzie can do a 5-minute sit-stay with one treat at the end, she's getting one treat every 5 minutes. And it's probably just a piece of dog food, right? So if we then bring a child into the room, that makes the difficulty harder because there's a distraction, which means I'm not going to increase my criteria at the same time, right? I've increased the distraction, so I'm going to lower my criteria. I'm not going to try and do 2 things at once. So when we bring a child into the room, I've made the difficulty harder by increasing the distractions, which means I'm going to make everything else on that list easier, right? I'm going to go as far away from the child as I can, so I'm going to use distance to my advantage. I'm going to increase my rate of reinforcement, so instead of getting one treat every 5 minutes, she's going to get one treat every 20 seconds or so. I'm also going to use a better treat, right? I'll probably use like hot dogs or something. And then I'm also going to lower my criteria. So if before my criteria is I expect you to stay for 5 minutes, now my criteria is I expect you to stay for 10 seconds or 20 seconds, right? So we increased one thing and we decreased everything else. So it's temporary. So now that we have a child in the room, let's say Kenzie's doing really, really well. So we're going to just change one thing on that list. So maybe now I'm going to come closer to the child. So I've decreased my distance, right? But I'm going to keep my rate of reinforcement high. I'm going to keep my criteria low because we only want to change one thing at a time, right? So then let's say she does really good with that. So now we're a few feet away from the child and she's getting a treat every 20 seconds for a sit-stay. So my criteria is nice and low. Then we can change things again. So we could either increase the intensity of the distraction, so I could have the child up and moving. I could decrease my rate of reinforcement, so instead of giving her a treat once every 20 seconds, I could give her a treat once every 30 seconds. I could raise my criteria, which in a stay example is the same as your rate of reinforcement, right? So I could say, okay, now instead of a 20-second sit-stay, I want a 30-second sit-stay. But the important piece here is that I'm only going to do one of those things at a time. I'm not going to do them all at once. Because if I do them all at once, she will fail. Okay, my sit-stay will fall apart, and all I will have taught her is yet again, when there are children in the room, you don't have to do your sit-stay, right? So we want to increase only one thing at a time. So let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm going to do a quick recap because I know that this is kind of a big topic. So if you have any questions, throw them in because I know that there's a little bit of a delay, and I'm going to hang out for a couple minutes and make sure that you guys get any questions answered. But like I said before, you know, we're going to be doing a focus building challenge in our Facebook group starting today. So that'll be a really excellent way to build focus because we're going to walk you through some of these things and show you how to actually implement a couple of these things. And then we can help you, you know, we can really help you during the challenge. And so that'll be really fun. So remember, like I said, when we're working with distractions, you want to keep those 4 things in mind. How far away you are from the distraction, the difficulty or the intensity level of the distraction, your rate of reinforcement, so how often you're giving your dog a treat, and what your criteria is. And I think that that's probably the one I see people mess up the most, is they assume that because their dog can do a 5-minute sit-stay at home in the living room, that their dog should be able to do a 5-minute sit-stay in the mall. And that's not how it works, okay? When you increase a distraction like that, when you increase the difficulty level, you have to temporarily relax your other criteria and temporarily make things easier. And if you can do that, you'll actually move through your distraction training a lot faster. So distraction training really is one of those, you know, the slower you go, the faster you'll get there kind of things. If you try and rush this, it's going to take you longer in the long run. But if you can go slowly and you can go methodically and work your way through this list one at a time, you're going to fly through your distraction training. So I will put the show notes to the description in this video, and I will also throw it in the comments for anybody, and I'll make sure to list these in the show notes as well, because I know sometimes watching a video, you know, you're kind of trying to take in a lot all at once. But distraction training doesn't have to feel so overwhelming. There's actually a methodical way to do this, and when you do it in the right order and in the right way, it's really not that difficult. And that's why I think that professional trainers make it look so easy, is because we pay attention to all 4 of these things subconsciously. So when I'm walking a dog down the mall, I don't even have to think about how far away am I from that child who's running down the other end of the hallway, and how fast should I be giving Kenzie treats, and how low should my criteria go. Because I've been doing this for a long time and I can do all that stuff on the fly, and it isn't something that I have to consciously think about in order to do. But it takes a little while to get there, and that's fine. I wasn't always like that. This took a while. So I'm going to put all this stuff in the show notes so that you can, you know, see it. If you're a more visual learner, you can read through the list and have everything that way. And if you want more help, you know, definitely join our Facebook group, join us on the challenge. We've got some really fun prizes that are coming your way for people who participate. And then you can let us know if you guys have any questions, because this is something that actually I really enjoy doing, is working through distractions and increasing focus in dogs. And when, like I said, when you follow the steps and you increase one thing at a time, you pay attention to your 4 factors and you only change 1 factor at a time, it doesn't have to feel so overwhelming, okay? So let us know if you have any questions, and I hope to see some more of you guys during the challenge this week. Have a good day.